Yo, what's up guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. Tensura. Melting the Eternal Frost by JackDaWeb Chapter 8 Demon Lord vs. Saint. Hanata's POV. It took a few days, but we've officially entered the borders of Tempest. The journey was quite peaceful, which was not what I expected. Not a single violent monster crossed our path, and the roads were incredibly well built. Based on the intel I received before, the nation of monsters is incredibly developed and has become a hotspot for merchants from both the east and the west. I must say, I wasn't expecting their roads to be this clean and safe. Fritz commented genuinely. The others nodded in agreement. I'm quite surprised as well. But considering their ruler is a reincarnated otherworlder, his knowledge of infrastructure is sure to be advanced, I remarked. It must be quite sad to get reincarnated as a slime. I can't imagine having no limbs. I wonder how he even has a human form. Sare pondered curiously. It might have been difficult at first, but with how powerful he's gotten now, I'm sure it wasn't that bad in retrospect, I said nonchalantly. We continued walking along the road and after half an hour, finally reached the entrance of the city. There was also a magic barrier around the entire city, though we weren't sure what it did, but proceeded nonetheless. The security wasn't too tight, and after passing through without a hitch, we officially entered the capital city of Tempest. To say that shock was written all over our faces would be somewhat of an understatement. The information we were given about the city did not even compare to what we were seeing before us. The streets were vibrant and bustling. Monsters of many different species living out peaceful lives, human merchants passing by engaging in the nation's trade, and everything else in between as far as we could see. The other saints were starstruck, looking around the city in awe and amazement. I noticed several different restaurants serving food that originated from my world. Without thinking, I began walking towards a Japanese-themed restaurant, eagerly wanting to try cuisines from my homeland which I hadn't eaten in so long. "Oi, Hanata-sama, where are you going?" Arno questioned when he realized I had strayed away from the group. I didn't respond and continued walking towards the restaurant. Confused at my actions, they all followed behind. I entered the building and immediately noted the delicious scent of the food. "Whoa, the food here smells really good," Lightus commented. "I know, right? Hanata-sama, we should eat here," Sare exclaimed. I nodded and we headed over to the counter. After ordering our food, we found a large table and sat down. Minutes later, the food was ready and delivered to our table. Their service is fast and the waiters are incredibly polite too. But most importantly, the food is so damn good. The others were eating with a look of ecstasy and I was no different. I took my time eating and savored every bite. Once we finished eating, we exited the restaurant. The city was so damn big that we were effectively lost. I asked a random citizen for directions to the Capitol building and we began walking there. While the others were discussing trivial stuff on our walk, I mostly remained silent, continuing to marvel at the city's beauty. After walking for a few minutes, we spotted a red-haired Kijin in the distance. He appeared to be patrolling the city since he was carrying his sword. The gap was closed between him and my group. Upon closer inspection, a chill ran down my spine as I could immediately tell that this man was very powerful. The others could also sense this monster's immense strength despite not radiating his aura. He eventually spotted our group and had a look of surprise on his face before walking towards us. This alarmed us slightly, but we did our best to remain calm. Once he was a few meters in front of our group, he stopped. "Well, this is unexpected. You guys came here earlier than expected," the Kijin remarked, puzzled at our supposed early arrival. Our group began looking at each other in confusion at his statement. "I guess this is fine. I'll go inform Rimuru-sama of your guys' arrival," he said and was about to begin walking away, but I stopped him. Wait. What are you talking about? Was Rimuru expecting our arrival?" I asked confusedly. He stopped walking and turned around. "He requested you guys to show up here. No, he even sent a crystal ball to deliver his message to you directly, Hanata-san," he said as he struck a thinking pose, now very confused. The others were puzzled and I was no different. I began running through several thoughts in my mind. So from what I'm hearing, it seems like Rimuru sent a message meant for us but never ended up receiving it. That means someone got a hold of it before it could reach us and took it. But why? And what could even motivate someone to do that? Just then, it clicked in my mind. The 7 celestial sages. Those damn bastards are always attempting to send me under. I have a feeling that it might have been them. My apologies, Kijin-san. But we never actually received this message you're talking about. Someone must have stolen the crystal ball before we could get it. And we came here of our own accord to speak with Demon Lord Rimuru. I explained with a respectful bow. My peers were looking at one another questioningly and the Kijin was in thought. That is possible. It would explain why you guys are here earlier than the agreed upon date. Also, the name's Benimaru, Commander-in-Chief of the Tempest military. He introduced himself proudly and in a dignified manner. We became visibly shocked that someone of such a high standing in this nation was just roaming around the city so casually. Ha ha ha. I'm also not a Kijin by the way, though I can understand the confusion, he explained. Pardon us then. We could have sworn you were a Kijin, Benimaru Dono. We were told that there were Kijins living here. Sare responded meekly. Hey, while that was true just over a month ago, it is no longer the case. The Kijins in Tempest have evolved into Onus, he stated bluntly. What? Onus? We all exclaimed in unison. Holy shit, it's no wonder I felt such intense pressure radiating from him despite concealing his aura. He's a fucking Oni. My battle instincts were screaming danger in all directions and it was proven right. Onus are thought to be mythical beings and are the roots of the Ogre and Kijin races. They are purely spiritual lifeforms that possess an immense amount of magicules, rivaling Demon Lord seeds. I'll go inform Rimuru-sama ahead, you guys can follow me to the capital, he said casually, dismissing our shocked state. Looking at one another briefly, we nodded in confirmation. Benimaru promptly left and headed towards the capital. We followed behind him and we eventually reached the building. It looked a lot bigger up close, the architectural design of the structure was beautiful and gave off a sense of grandeur. Entering the building, we were even more amazed by the interior of the whole place. It was incredibly spacious and well decorated. The majority of the people inside were hobgoblins, mixed in with a few different monster species all doing their jobs diligently. Please wait here, everyone. Benimaru asked politely. We obliged and sat down on the lobby couches which were incredibly comfortable by the way. The Oni walked up the grand staircase and vanished into a hallway. We sat in silence for a few minutes and just waited awkwardly. I guess they're still taking in their experience in this nation. Everyone, what are your thoughts? About this nation I mean. I asked curiously, breaking the silence and making everyone turn their attention to me. They began thinking deeply before speaking up. This place is incredible, I'm not gonna lie. While it's not as advanced as Ingrasha or Lubelio's, the fact that this country is barely 2 years old and already at this level is ridiculous. Fritz commented honestly. We nodded in agreement and then Lytus followed up. Aside from their incredibly fast advancement, the people here seem genuinely happy and are living good lives, she remarked. But what really caught my attention was just how crazy strong the people here are. I'm sure you all took note of it too. Every single monster here is named and underwent a higher evolution. Sare pointed out loudly. You're certainly right. You all sensed it, right? That Oni who we encountered is no joke. Just from a glance, I can tell that I'd struggle heavily if I fought against him, and I'm not even sure if I'd win. I admitted honestly. They were shocked that I showed such praise to a monster but didn't say anything about it since they saw Benimaru up close and recognized his overwhelming strength. Yo, sorry I couldn't receive you guys more formally, I wasn't expecting such an early arrival, a voice greeted cheerfully. We quickly looked around frantically, searching for the source of the unknown greeting before our eyes landed upon a beautiful maiden with long platinum blue hair. There he was in all his majesty, the Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest. He hid his presence incredibly well, to the point that we couldn't even detect him. Once he was in our view, the pressure in the air thickened at his sheer presence alone. We all immediately stood up and bowed in respect. We are honored to be in your presence, Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest, we said in unison. Ha ha ha. No need to be so formal with me. Raise your heads, you guys. Besides, I technically invited you all. But I guess the message never made it to you. He replied casually. We raised our heads and sighed in relief. The crystal ball you sent was likely stolen by a third party on its way to us, Rimuru-san. I explained my theory and he nodded in agreement. Yeah, that's most likely. Not to worry though, one of my subordinates is already looking into it, he said reassuringly. Just then, A distortion in space appeared next to Rimuru, which immediately alarmed us. After a brief moment, the distortion vanished, and out came a beautiful woman with long white hair done in a twin tail. She exuded an aura of serenity and grace as she landed elegantly on the ground. Era, it appears that your guests have arrived earlier than expected, Rimuru-kun, the woman said softly. Ah, yes. Welcome back, Velzard, he replied happily. Velzard-sama? We exclaimed all together and dropped to our knees on pure instinct. Foo. Hello visitors. Welcome to Tempest. I hope you all have a pleasant stay here. She greeted us with a light and graceful bow. Oi, Vels-chan. That's supposed to be my line, Rimuru said dryly. But you didn't, Rimuru-kun. As the de facto second in command and your supervisor, I had to greet your guests, Foo, she teased playfully, and Rimuru sighed in response. I took note of the two's interactions and peculiar dynamics with each other. From what we knew based on the recording, Velzard is Rimuru's supervisor, but their relationship definitely goes beyond being just peers. Most people would prostrate themselves before the mightiest of the true dragons alive. Hell, most people would be lucky to even see her in person, yet Rimuru is here being so casual with her. They even have nicknames for each other. I wonder if they're involved in a romantic relationship of sorts. If that's the case, then the world would be turned upside down. Pushing my thoughts aside, I got up alongside the other saints. Anyway, if you're wondering why I requested you to come here, it's to have a peace talk. But seeing as you all came here of your own accord, you must have your reasons, correct? Rimuru asked calmly. His statement of a peace talk shocked us since it meant that Luminous was right about his pacifism. Indeed. Truthfully, I came here to personally apologize to you, Rimuru-san. After looking back at my actions during your visit to Ingrasha, I realized that I was acting rashly. I am not seeking your forgiveness, and only wish to offer my sincerest apologies. I'm sorry, Rimuru-san. I said apologetically with a respectful bow. My comrades remained silent and Rimuru looked surprised. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, your actions and the results that came from it really did tick me off. Just thinking about it brings back some awful memories, he said in a serious tone. The others all gulped in response but remained silent. However, if it wasn't for that happening, I doubt I would have evolved and become a demon lord. In a roundabout way, you ended up helping me, ha. His demeanor made a quick turnaround. We were still very tense and remained silent, waiting for Rimuru to continue. I'm also not one to hold grudges. I'm sure you know already, but I was once human too. This might go against your expectations, but I forgive you, he said brightly. I immediately perked up and the saints looked extremely surprised and relieved, but then Rimuru held his hand up. But, I will only forgive you under one condition, he said playfully with a smirk while holding an index finger up. My allies gulped at his statement, but I nodded in confirmation, which terrified them. I would be happy to oblige, Rimuru-san, I said humbly. Rimuru's grin grew wider at my response. Then I'd like to challenge you to a duel, one-on-one, he declared boldly. We all became shocked at his request and everyone had a concerned look on their faces. Don't worry, it won't be a battle to the death, but I'd like it if we both gave it our all. I've been eager to have a rematch with you ever since we first fought under those totally unfair conditions, by the way. HMPH. He explained while emphasizing the unfair conditions part, which must have been the magic barrier around the city at the time. His tone was quite playful though, and he even pouted while crossing his arms. Foo. Rimuru-kun is a sore loser. Velzard teased him again. Shut up. He snapped back, but Velzard only giggled in response. Ha. In all honesty, if we faced off now, then the roles would definitely reverse. I'll be the one at a major disadvantage, I said half-jokingly. I wouldn't be so sure. Judging from your strength, you're on par with one of my strongest subordinates. I believe you've met him already, he remarked. If it's a duel you want, I'll gladly give you one. Just please hold back. I might not make it out alive, ha. I joked dryly. Yosh. Then it's settled. Let's do it now. After that, we'll give you guys a tour around Tempest, he exclaimed excitedly. Wait, what? I asked in surprise. Without any warning, he activated a teleportation spell which sent us to the outskirts of the city. My allies were taken by surprise and a few of them fell on the ground disoriented. We were now standing in a large open area far enough away from the civilians. "Let me know when you're ready," he said cheerfully. "Geez, you could have warned, as you know," I replied while scratching my head. Unsheathing my rapier, Moonlight, I assumed a fighting stance and equipped my holy armaments. I decided that I would be going all out in this duel from the beginning. There were absolutely no cutting corners here, as my opponent is many times stronger than I am. Having now been elevated to a true saint temporarily, I readied myself. Velzard then teleported herself along my comrades around 100 meters away from us and snapped her fingers. In the next instant, a barrier composed of millions of tiny ice crystals formed around me and Rimuru. Just from one glance, I immediately recognized that this barrier is nigh impenetrable. Such is the power of a true dragon. Rimuru still hadn't unsheathed his sword and was merely standing patiently, waiting for me to make the first move. Stealing my resolve, I took a deep breath before lunging towards Rimuru at full speed. I aimed my slash directly at his head, but he still hadn't moved at all. My blade was just about to reach his neck until cleeing a loud noise reverberated through the air as our swords made contact with tremendous force. My rapier was just inches away from connecting, but without me even seeing it, he managed to unsheath his sword in a millisecond and blocked my attack effortlessly. Seeing the devious grin on his face, I immediately jumped back and placed some distance between us. What the hell was that? Thanks to my temporary evolution, I'm basically at the level of a true demon lord. But I guess I was still too slow. He then sheathed his blade, much to my confusion. I stood there puzzled, thinking the duel was over, but I couldn't have been more wrong. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from his spot and was now directly in front of me. His fist was moving towards me at a frightening speed, almost too fast to comprehend. Having almost no time to think, I blocked his punch with my sword and I was sent flying back several dozen meters. TCH, he really just punched a legend-grade weapon like it was nothing. What a monster. At this point, this is no longer a duel. He's only having fun now. Regaining my composure, I activated my unique skills, Usurper and Mathematician, simultaneously in an attempt to analyze his skills and use C's. Since he's at a much higher level than me, I placed my bets on a forceful takeover of his skills. However, reality is often cruel. Blocked. Luminous Valentine was the first individual I faced in this world who managed to block my skill, and Rimuru was now on the same level as her and likely even surpassed her already. Ha ha ha. To think that he's only been reincarnated into this world for roughly 2 years. His growth rate is unreal, almost frightening. He. I see what you tried to do there, Hanata-san. That's quite an impressive skill you've got. Unfortunately for you, I have a similar skill, but much more terrifying, he stated casually. So he even has a skill that's similar to Usurper, but only much more terrifying. I'm not even surprised anymore. Rimuru Tempest is genuinely scary beyond belief. Regardless, I rushed in attempting to overwhelm him with a relentless barrage of slashes. He responded by unsheathing his sword again and began parrying all my attacks effortlessly. TCH, still ineffective, huh? Time to shift tactics. I placed some distance between us and started launching a myriad of different long-ranged magic attacks. However, projectiles and magic seemed even less effective against him than going melee. I jumped back to get away and catch my breath. He then stood still and waited, our fight entering a standstill. This is bad. Humans have limited stamina and will eventually tire out, while on the other hand, monsters don't ever get tired. If the gap between us wasn't this large, this would have become a battle of attrition, resulting in me eventually losing. Realizing I had no other option, I readied myself to use my trump card. I imbued Disintegration into Moonlight and enhanced it with holy magic, making my rapier glow brightly. This is all in preparation for my most devastating and powerful attack, that being Melt Slash. Without saying a word, I dashed at Rimuru, moving faster than I'd ever gone in my life. Rimuru's pav fufufu, so she's resorted to using a trump card, Not a bad plan, honestly. That attack looks like it could even damage Veldora. I stood still and waited for her to get closer, since from my point of view, Hanata was moving painfully slowly because of thought acceleration, working at maximum output. Seal. Will I be in danger if that hits me? No, while it will certainly deal damage if it hits, it won't be enough to significantly injure you. So I could literally just stand here and take it with minimal consequences? Yes. That's reassuring, but since I have the opportunity right in front of me, why not conduct a little experiment? I've been meaning to see how white ice magic fares defensively. Velzard has also been teaching me how to control the magnitude of deceleration better. It's been fun, Hanata, but it's about time we end this. Cease all motion, Velzard. I commanded strongly and my skill obeyed. I activated a new and experimental move that I've been working on recently. It's a defensive technique that slows down incoming threats and then immediately removes all its kinetic energy. I called the move, Cease Motion, an application of the decelerative nature of the ultimate skill, Lord of White Ice, Velzard, which I'm still able to use via God of Harvest, Shub Niggurath. When I first demonstrated this to Velzard, she was extremely impressed. Hey, just thinking about it now is making me blush a bit. I'm getting distracted again, it's time to end this. In an instant, Hanata's momentum came to an immediate halt. Due to the sheer and sudden drop in velocity, her sword was shattered into pieces without even making physical contact with anything. It was as if her sword attempted to pierce an invisible and indestructible object. Hanata had shock written all over her face. Thankfully, she remained unharmed from the effects of Cease Motion, since I focused the majority of its power on her sword. Hanata, realizing her loss, dropped to her knees in utter defeat. It is my loss, Rimuru-san. Ha ha ha. You are truly a monster. I went all out from the start yet couldn't even land a hit, she admitted humbly. You fought extremely well regardless, and if Melt/ had landed, it would have actually damaged me. I just activated an experimental defensive technique and it turned out quite well, I explained. She appeared shocked, probably because I knew the name of her trump card. How do you know the name of the attack? She asked, surprised. I may or may not have analyzed it before I dispelled it, I answered vaguely. You analyzed it? Huh, you're really terrifying, you know that? She said jokingly. I chuckled and then helped her get up. The barrier that Velzard erected was dispelled and we saw her and Hanata's crew walking towards us. Her group looked relieved but also terrified at the same time. I would be too if I saw my leader getting toyed with like it was nothing. Not long after, the group eventually reached us. Fufufu, spectacular performance, Rimuru-kun. You've become quite adept at using my magic. That move you showed off earlier is almost as good as my snow crystal, she praised genuinely. I laughed awkwardly and scratched the back of my head. Surely you're kidding, Velzard. That barrier is ridiculous and not even Veldora can get through it, I retorted humbly. But you are bound to get stronger, Rimuru-kun, she replied earnestly. Man, that was terrifying. You really are the real deal, Rimuru-san. Fritz remarked somewhat nervously and his group nodded in agreement. Oh right. Hanata, here you go. Sorry about your rapier earlier. I apologized briefly as I manifested an identical copy of her sword and handed it to her. Everyone except for Velzard widened their eyes in shock. Huh? Did you just recreate my rapier? Just like that? She asked in disbelief while taking the sword from me. I only nodded in response and shrugged. How? Her companions asked loudly. Nothing escapes my analysis around here, I stated proudly with a wide smile. Terrifying. They all said in unison. Anyway, let's go give you guys a tour around Tempest since you're all here anyway, I said excitedly and they all perked up. Activating space-time domination, I teleported us back to the city in the middle of the plaza. Ha ha ha. It looks like they're not used to teleportation yet since most of them looked dazed after that. Seeing that our business has concluded, Velzard excused herself and after waving her goodbye, she began flying back to our home. It was now late in the afternoon, a perfect time to have a tour around the city because of the upcoming nightlife. Hanata mentioned that they already tried one of the restaurants in Tempest and absolutely loved it. I showed them around the various commodities and facilities around the city. They were amazed at the rapid growth and success of the nation, which made me feel incredibly proud of myself and my people. Night had struck a few hours later and the beautiful nightlife of the city was on full display for the guests. Fluorescent city lights covered the streets and stalls of different kinds opened up for business. Hanata and her group were in awe at the absolute beauty and vibe of the city at night. I asked if they wanted to stay at an inn before returning to Lubelio's. At first, they were hesitant but accepted gratefully after realizing how late it was. When they were about to enter their rooms, I pulled Hanata aside as I wanted to ask her about my real favor. We went over to the inn's lobby and sat down on the couch. I grabbed 2 cups of tea from my imaginary space and set it down on the coffee table. What did you want to ask me, Rimuru-san? She asked curiously. Tell me, Hanata-san. Do you by any chance work for Demon Lord Luminous Valentine? I questioned calmly. She widened her eyes at this but then quickly regained her composure. I'm assuming she revealed herself at Walpurgis then? Yes, I do work under her, she replied and nodded in confirmation. Well, not exactly revealed herself, more like, she got exposed by another demon lord who blew her cover. I explained vaguely, remembering the absolute dumbass move that Milam pulled. For some reason, Hanata looked like she was about to laugh, but she managed to keep it together. Would you mind telling me why you're asking this, Rimuru-san? And what does it have to do with your favor? She pressed further. I paused and took a breath before continuing. You see, I want you to tell her that I wish to have a meeting discussing a potential peace treaty between Tempest and Lubelios. So can you deliver my message, Hanata Sakaguchi?